स्वामिन्नमस्ते नतलोकबन्धो कारुण्यसिन्धो पतितं भवाब्धौ मामुद्धरात्मीयकटाक्षदृष्ट्या ऋज्व्यातिकारुण्य सुधाभिवृष्ट्या स्वामिन्नमस्ते 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 ज्ञानस्वरूपं निजभावयुक्तम् आनन्दमानन्दकरं प्रसन्नं योगीन्द्रमीड्यं भवरोगवैद्यं श्रीमद्गुरुं नित्यमहं नमामि श्रीमद्गुरुं नित्यमहं नमामि नित्याय सत्याय चिदात्मकाय नव्याय भव्याय परात्पराय शुद्धाय बुद्धाय निरञ्जनाय नमोऽस्तु नित्यं गुरुशेखराय नमोऽस्तु नित्यं गुरुशेखराय नमोऽस्तु नित्यं गुरुशेखराय। जय गुरु, जय गुरु, जय गुरु. We are discussing Sadguru Sannidhya. It's a great blessing to have the close association of a Sadguru. In the close association of Sadguru alone, a disciple learns about the spiritual path, grows in sincerity, Guru Bhakti, and ultimately gets guided to the supreme felicity, the state where there is no fear, no affectedness, and there is oneness with this whole universe. We started discussing this book, Sadguru Sannidhya, a Bengali book, which was released on 26 February 2025 in Dakshin Khanda, West Bengal, near Murshidabad. There, Swamiji has written, Nutan Swamiji and myself, we have written about our association with Baba Gangadhara Paramahamsa. While discussing this book, because the book is in Bengali, many would not have been able to read the book. I started discussing this book, reading out from this book, and discussing in English in these sessions. And then I went over to Swamiji's book, which Swamiji has written on Baba in a very detailed manner, My Beloved Baba. Swamiji's own interactions, his own feelings about his association with Baba, his reflections on what Baba told him, how he assimilated whatever Baba told, how Baba alone, his Guru, is the only one to him he has looked to for anything and everything in this life, and how he has got fulfillment. While we were going through this book and My Beloved Baba, portions of My Beloved Baba, I think all of us has been drenched in Guru Bhakti. All of us have been enlightened to know what real Guru Bhakti is, what a Shishya should be in the association of a Guru, how humble he should become, how egoless he should become, how open and straightforward he should be in receiving whatever the Guru imparts to him, and in whichever manner the Guru tries to mold the Shishya, how a Shishya should be open enough to be molded. He should give freedom to the Guru to mold himself, to mold him, the disciple. So we're at the end of this discussion, and in the last session we were discussing how Swamiji had been going to stay with Baba in the weekends. Swamiji was working in Kolkata. He was very young at that time, just crossed 20. He used to go from Kolkata to Dakshin Khanda, and those days, going was very difficult. Proper trains were not there. And he would stay there in the weekends and come back and join office on Monday. All that we read from My Beloved Baba is Swamiji's narrations about his interactions with Baba, what Baba told him. And last session we were discussing how, having had the association with Baba, reading the Shastras and doing his own meditation and pursuing the sadhana sincerely and one-pointedly, the feeling of renouncing came to Swamiji's mind. And he has been discussing about renunciation also with Baba. And Baba has given him many guidelines about when a seeker renounces, how he becomes one with the whole world. He should become. He should belong not to a family alone. He should become one belonging to the whole universe, the whole creation, in fact. And how the whole creation becomes his family. He goes from the limited family to the unlimited, huge creation. So, we were being enlightened, and I would say not only enlightened, I myself, when I go through these, I really feel the bliss of vairagya, the bliss of renunciation, tyaga, when we read these portions of Swamiji having asked Baba about renunciation. So, while Swamiji was reading Kenopanishad, it brought clarity and unquestionable candidness of the messages of Kenopanishad. Kenopanishad said, that by which the eyes see, the ears hear, the mind thinks, the life forces act, know that to be Brahman and not the one which is worshipped outside as deity. Yena chakshum shipashyati, yena shrotramidam shrutam, yena hurmano matam, yena prana praniyate. In few slokas it is written like this. Each of the sloka ends with Tadeva brahmatvam vidhi nedam yadidam upasate. That is, the power which makes the eye see, that by which the eye see, the ears hear, the mind thinks, and the prana acts. Know that to be Brahman. One, the entity or the power which enlivens and animates these organs, that is Brahman, and not the one, the deities which we worship. Guru Diksha and sadhana alone can lead one to fruition. So, to know that which is animating, that which is the source of all consciousness, the presence which animates us, Guru Diksha and one's own sadhana can only lead one to fruition. And Swamiji was very, very sure that he wanted to reach there. Again and again he would think of Baba, who in his life had left everything, simply remaining himself, either singing or meditating or standing on his head, embraced by oneself, embraced by his own antaratma. So Swamiji also wanted to be embraced by his own antaratma and live in this world. Swamiji has quoted the Mandukya Upanishad in the 7th mantra actually, which lays down clearly the supreme and comprehensive nature of the consciousness. Yesterday the shloka was not there. Many of you who regularly listen to Swamiji's talks might have heard him chant this. This is the 7th mantra of Mandukya Upanishad. Mandukya Upanishad, the Gaudapada Karika is there with us. So this is the 7th mantra which says about what is this Turiya, that state, the 4th state, which is beyond everything. And it says, Nanta pratyam na bahih pratyam no bhayata pratyam na pratyana ghanam na pratyam na pratyam adrishtam avyavaharyam agrahyam alakshanam achintyam avyapadeshyam ekatmat pratyasaram prapanchopashamam shantam shibam advaitam chaturtham manyante sa atma sa vigneyaha nanta pratyam na bahi pratyam no bhayata pratyam na pratyana ghanam na pratyam na pratyam adrishtam avyavaharyam agrahyam alakshanam achintyam avyapadeshyam ekatma pratyasaram prapanchopashamam shantam shivam advaitam chaturtham manyante sa atma sa vigneyaha. So that chaturtham is the atma, that has to be known. And what is the characteristic? It says Turiya, the chaturtham, is not that which is conscious of the internal world. It is not only that it is conscious of the internal world, not which is conscious of the external world. Na anta pratyam, na anta pratyam, na bahi pratyam. Not that which is conscious of the external world, bahi pratyam. Not that which is conscious of both, and also it is not that it is conscious of the internal as well as external alone. No bhayata pratyam. Not that which is a mass which is a mass of all sentiency. No bhayata pratyam na pratyana ghanam. It is also not, it is a dense consciousness of all sentient objects. It is not also that. Not that which is simple consciousness. Na pradyam, na apradyam, na pradyam, na pradyanaghanam, na pradyam, na apradyam. It is also not that which is simple consciousness, not that which is insentient. So it is, what is this then? How do you describe it? It's trying to describe it and it says it is not this, it is not that, it is not this, it is not that. What does it say? Na antapragyam, na bahipragyam. It is not that it is the conscious, it is only conscious of the internal world, not also of the external world, not also of both. It is not also conscious of, it is a dense consciousness. It is not that it is it's a simple consciousness. It is also not that which is insentient. Then, how do you describe it? Adrishtam, avyavaharyam, agrahyam, alakshanam, achintyam, avyapadeshyam, ekatma pratyayasaram, prapanchopashamam, shantam, shivamadvaitam, chaturtham manyante, sa atma sa vidyeyaha. So, how is it then? How do we describe it? We all said it is not this, not this, not this, not this. Then, to some extent, how do we describe it? It is unseen, adrishtam. It is unseen by any sense organ. Avyavaharyam, not related to anything incomprehensible by the mind. It is incomprehensible by the mind. Then, agrahyam, uninferable. Agrahyam, we cannot infer about it. Agrahyam, alakshanam, unthinkable. Achintyam, indescribable. Avyapadeshyam, essentially of the nature of consciousness. Ekatma pratyayasaram. It says, adrishtam, trying to describe it to some extent. Adrishtam, with it cannot be seen, it cannot be think about, it cannot be thought about, it cannot be inferred, it is not this, like this, it has told. Now what it says is, it is ekatma pratyayasaram. What is it? Ekatma pratyayasaram. It is essentially the nature of consciousness constituting the self alone. Ekatma pratyayasaram. Prapanchopashamam, and negation of all phenomena. It is shantam, shivam, advaitam. It is the peaceful, all bliss. Shantam is peaceful. Then shivam, it is, shantam is peaceful. Shivam is auspicious or all blissfulness. And advaitam, it is non-dual. This is what is known as the fourth, the Turiya. So what it is? Ekatma pratyayasaram. It is the nature of consciousness constituting the self alone. It's only the self alone. And of what nature? Shantam, Shivam, Advaitam. It is peacefulness, auspicious or blissfulness, and it is non-dual. This is what is known as the fourth Turiya. This is the Atma, sa Vidyeyaha. That is the Atma, and that has to be known, to be realized. This is the seventh shloka of Mandukya Upanishad. Now, this is what Swamiji was reading the Upanishads at that time. So, all this was making his mind and heart very much yearning to know and realize which the Upanishads are talking about. In this book, he has referred to Kenopanishad, where it says that that is Brahman, which makes the eyes see, makes the ears hear, makes the mind think, makes the prana act. That is Brahman. That has to be known. And similarly, in this book, he has also made the reference to the Mandukya Upanishad, where he says, this Ekatma Pratyasaram. In the previous session, I was reading and I read this Swamiji mentioning this Ekatma Pratyasaram. So I don't remember this shloka. And so today I thought that I'll tell the shloka also to you. So when he reads this, in this seventh shloka of Mandukya Upanishad, it says very clearly to any seeker that this is what is to be known. This is what is to be known. What is this? This is what the self is, not this, not this, not this, but is this. And we have to know the self in that manner. And what is that? We have to live in that consciousness, that knowledge. While we live, whatever we do, we should not forget that I am the self and my characteristics is like this. So, this is what, unless somebody gives a whole mind and life and heart to this knowledge, wants nothing else in this world, just wants to realize this, one has to renounce. So, Swamiji thought about renunciation. And Swamiji is further telling us in his book what Baba told him at that time. He said that, be sure that it endures. What? Comprehend consciousness helped by mind and intelligence, but transcending both in the process. So, a sadhaka should, during the sadhana, what is the sadhana? The Guru has given a sadhana. Guru may be giving a mantra, and you are supposed to do your sadhana sitting, doing japa, doing meditation. That alone is not sadhana. The sadhana is to grow to this state of the Atma, the qualities of the Atma, which we come to know through these scriptures, and we should try to grow in these qualities. Whatever we come across, we should become pure and pure and pure. And how will we do it? How will we know that we have not yet progressed in gaining the qualities, or we have progressed a little bit? Unless we do vichara using our mind and intelligence, we will not be. So sadhana is not something routinous. Sadhana is not something mechanical, that every day for 1 hour we sit near our shrine or we try to meditate, and rest of the time we forget the fact that even I am a seeker. We have to constantly sit in ourselves, on and off, doing whatever in our life needs us to do. We should connect it to the self and do all the actions, all thoughts and everything, not forgetting that I am the self. So Baba told Swamiji, comprehend consciousness. See the consciousness everywhere. In all our interactions, in all plurality, find the same consciousness beneath it, held by mind and intelligence. Comprehend consciousness held by mind and intelligence, but transcending both in the process. Be sure that it endures, and there should be endurance. Do not give up hope. Do not get distracted. Some days you may not find enthusiasm in your sadhana. You may feel that you are going nowhere. Do not give up hope. You have to endure the stages of sadhana. And for that, drop all desires. Outlive possessiveness. Shed all curiosity and wonder, even the spiritual ones. You are already full with what you seek. Any insufficiency means your fall from the comprehension. This I discussed in detail last session. So, to be enduring all the stages of sadhana, sometimes there will be lot of yearning, lot of enthusiasm, a feeling of satisfaction that I am growing and progressing on the path, finding that my constrictions are less, I am expansive. And sometimes you will find that you have slipped away. Be enduring. See only the consciousness behind it. Be only the hand of the providence beyond everything, and go forward. For that, all kinds of desires should be left. Even the desire to become something spiritual, desire to attain, that also has to be left. Outlive possessiveness. Shed all curiosity and wonder, even the spiritual ones. You are already full with what you seek. Any insufficiency means your fall from the comprehension. So, never feel that you are insufficient. Become full always. Fill full. Purnata. Self is Purna. Purna. Praise none. Pray to none. Be seated in your own self. Be full always. The challenge to this fullness comes from your own mind and intelligence. Insatiable mind is the shortcoming. Arguing intelligence is the hindrance. Make your knowledge doubt-free and absolute. If there is difficulty, look to none and nowhere except your sadhana. Sadhana should burn all defects and imperfections. What deep instructions these are. And true for every seeker. Only whatever difficulty comes, whether it comes in the material life, whether it comes in the spiritual life, you have to only take refuge to your Guru and Guru Mantra, your sadhana, nowhere else. That becomes the bhakti. When you can one-pointedly feel that this alone is my refuge, that is the pinnacle of Guru Bhakti, nothing else. Then Swamiji writes that very soon Baba gave sannyasa. The name he chose for me as Bhumananda. Bhuma. Yo vai bhuma tat sukham. Nalpe sukham asti. So, this is also from the Upanishads. Yo vai bhuma tat sukham. Whatever is huge, big, in that is sukha. Huge and big means whichever is infinite. In that is sukha. Na alpe sukham asti. When we remain constricted, there the sukha is not there. We may get little sukha from this, that, whatever we want. If we get it, we get sukha. That sukha doesn't stay. Only when we are spread out, sukha is there. So Baba gave the name Bhumananda. As you know, many of you must be knowing that the sannyasis get the name some name, and all the names of sannyasa is a characteristic of the self. And along with that is added Ananda. So Bhumananda, Swamiji got the name. Baba explained that our parampara, and after that the parampara name is also come, will also come. So Baba explained that our parampara lineage was Tirtha, and hence the Tirtha surname would be added in the end. That is why Swamiji is Bhumananda Tirtha. So in our parampara, this is the surname, Tirtha. And Tirtha Parampara is one of the Dashanamis, the 10 orders of sannyasa instituted by the great Shankaracharya over 1200 years ago. This Tirtha Parampara, Shankaracharya was in that age, 1200 years ago, more than that. At that time, our Vedanta, our Upanishads, they had, people were not knowing about it. Mostly rituals were taking place. So his guru told him to spread the knowledge of Vedanta everywhere, knowledge of the Upanishads. And that is how Shankaracharya at that young age, those days there were no vehicles even, walked from Kashmir to Kanyakumari, I think, everywhere, to the south, to the north, to the east, to the west, and had many followers. And there were some very close disciples, 4 of them, Padmapadacharya, Sureshwaracharya, then Hastamalaka and Totakacharya, all these people, and there were many. He divided the sannyasa ashram into 10 sectors, 10 parts, and gave them the names. The names are, I'll read out, Tirtha, Ashrama, Vana, Aranya, Giri, Parvata, Sagara, Saraswati, Bharati, Puri, Namani Vaidasha. So, you will find that many of the sannyasis, they have Tirtha at the end. Some have Saraswati at the end. Some have Bharati at the end. Some have Puri at the end. Similarly, Giri at the end. These are a little rare to hear, Aranya, Parvata, Sagara, etc. But these are the 10. What are the 10? Tirtha, Ashrama, Vana, Aranya, Giri, Parvata, Sagara, Saraswati, Bharati, Puri. So the shloka, there is a shloka, it calls Tirthashrama, Vana, Aranya, Giri, Parvata, Sagaraha, Saraswati, Bharati, Cha, Puri, Namani, Vaidasha. Tirthashrama, Vana, Aranya, Giri, Parvata, Sagaraha, Saraswati, Bharati, Cha, Puri, Namani, Vaidasha. The 10 divisions that he made. He made 10 orders of sannyasa, and those who took sannyasa from any of these, they would be known by the last surname as from wherever they have taken. After, I think it will be nice to know at this point about our Guru Parampara. Baba's Gurudev was Kshitish Chandra Dev. His Gurudev was from what is Bangladesh now, near Dhaka, a place called Faridpur, Swami Narayan Tirthadev. Swami Narayan Tirthadev's Gurudev was Gangadhara Paramahamsa, He also was staying there. He was a Shankaracharya of the Puri Govardhan Mutt at one time. And his Gurudev was from somewhere from Rishikesh, Haridwar, whose name we don't know. So they were all the Tirtha Parampara. This 10 orders which Shankaracharya instituted, the main responsibility of the sannyasins of Dashanami, it is called Dashanami because there are 10 orders, it is called Dashanami Sampradaya. The main duty or the main responsibility of these Dashanami sannyasins is to preserve our ancient Upanishadic messages and to disseminate the message throughout the world. This is the main duty. That is why Swadhyaya and Prachara both are very important in the Dashanami Sampradaya. And in our parampara, the aim of the Diksha is to realize the message of the Shastra. That is, what is the message of the Shastra? That self alone is Ekatma Pratyaya Saram. The self alone is Shantam Shivam Advaitam Sa Atma Sa Vijñeyaha. So the message is that everybody must realize one's own self. So in our parampara also the aim is to realize the message of the self in one's own heart and to live a divine life ever after. Whole life should be divinized. This is our aim. After Baba gave me Gerua, I inquired, Baba, do you have any difficulty in your heart in my taking to this life? After Baba gave me the Gerua, Swamiji asked Baba, Baba, how do you feel? Do you have any difficulty in your heart? Baba said, no. I only wonder you are here now by my side. You are also part of my life, daily living. When you go, I will not have this nearness. Your present share in my life will also be denied. So, the Guru is saying to his Shishya, who has taken to renunciation, and what is the Guru doing? All that he has imparted to the Shishya has led him to renunciation. And what does the Shishya want to do? He wants to go into the streets, relying only on the providence, being sheltered only by the roads, and keeping the Guru's refuge in his heart. The Guru is giving him farewell. Okay, you go. Go and know your own self, find the self everywhere. And he says, I will not have any difficulty, but till now you are the part of my life. I had your nearness. The Guru knows that the Shishya will be now roaming about everywhere in this world, finding the divinity and the Guru everywhere. So he may not be able to come to the Guru as often as he could. So Baba is telling, you are here now by my side. You are also part of my life, daily living. When you go, I will not have this nearness. Your present share in my life also will be denied. The words hinted at more than what they verbally meant. I sensed the underlying fondness and depth. So when Baba told this, Swamiji understood how much Baba loves and how much fondness Baba has for Swamiji. It went deep into his heart. And that is why wherever he went, everywhere, every time, every year, Swamiji used to go to Baba, even if it is for one day, meet him and spend time with him and then go forward in his own activity till Baba was in his body. The words hinted at more than what they verbally meant. I sensed the underlying fondness and depth. The word Manasaputra haunted my mind. Baba had said, "You are all my Manasaputra." Swamiji writes, this word haunted my mind. It is human nature that for their own parents, they think. If the parents are in difficulty or the parents are sick, they will try their best to be by the side of the parents, help them. Mostly it is so. They will forget everything, leave everything and run there. To be of service, to be of help. But many do not do for the Guru. Many do not do for the Guru. There are only a few who feel like that. Even though the Guru is feeling he or she is my Manasaputra or Manasaputri, the disciple doesn't feel so. Very rarely they feel so. Very rarely they place their Guru, if not above, at least in the level of their blood parents. We must think about it. How many will inquire, "How are you? Do you need me? I am ready to come. I am ready to help you." Is there any necessity, either in your physical health or in whatever activities you are doing? Please tell me, I'll come any time, any moment. People are not. That is what the Guru Bhakti means. So, assess what will you do for your own parents. Are you doing even that? Or more? So the word Manasaputra haunted my mind. Baba's reaction and no reaction, fondness and no fondness, readiness and non-readiness, all were too conspicuous. A Guru is great. How he serves and guides disciples' interest is something to be known only through their experience. I submitted in all firmness, "Baba, whatever I am to you now, I shall be even more hence. The change in my life is not a change in my heart. It can only adorn and enrich my inner notes." So, when Baba said this, Swamiji underwent some reflections and he understood that what Baba thinks. So he said that, "Baba, whatever I am to you now, I'll always be so. There won't be any change in my mind and heart. That is, as I was available to you unconditionally at any time, now also in my life as a sannyasin, I will be available to you." A Guru is great. How he serves and guides disciples' interest is something to be known only through their experience. After renunciation, I had a parivrajana life in Tamil Nadu. Listening to my narration, Baba said, "Wandering life has its own lessons and enrichment, but it is not necessary for all. The question primarily is whether the mind becomes sublimated and restful. Whatever growth and enrichment such an uncertain life of wandering would bring can also come to you wherever you are. So Swamiji first, after renouncing, it's all there in the My Beloved Baba, Swamiji's life as a renunciate, wandering monk. He was wandering without money. If you have read this book, or if you are going to read this book, you will find all that. And Swamiji used to go back to Baba every year. Maybe they would exchange notes. So Baba said, wandering life has its own lessons and enrichment. In wandering life, one has to be like a sky, taintless. Garlands and swords, both will be there. Respect and insult, both will be there. Food and no food, both will be there. Shelter or no shelter, both will be there. So one must learn, be enlightened, to have samatva, to rely on the providence. When we are very secure under a shelter, every day getting food, clothes to wear, maybe a little money to spend also, we don't know what is this reliance on providence. That is why sannyasins wander. They go wandering, walking on the path, or go here and there, spend their time. So, wandering life has its own lessons and enrichment, but it is not necessary for all. It is not necessary for all. The question primarily is whether the mind becomes sublimated and restful. So whether you wander, or whether you stay in an ashram, or whether you stay in your own solitary hut, in a solitary place, wherever you are, what is necessary is the mind should be sublimated and mind should be restful. Mind should be pure and shanta. I chanted that shloka, Vishuddha Sattvasya Gunaha Prasadaha. Mind should be blessed. Swatmanubhuti, one must be realizing the self. Parama Prashanti, you must have supreme peacefulness. Truptihi Praharshaha Paramatmanishta. There should be contentment, exhilaration, and Paramatmanishta. Whatever you do knowing that you are guided by that providence. Yaya sadanandarasam samrichyati. And because of that, what will happen? Unbrokenly, you will be experiencing the bliss, anandarasam. So, wherever you are, this should be what happens to a seeker. This should be what you attain and not anything else. If remaining anywhere, taking to any austerity, this is not happening, then that has no meaning. So Baba said the question primarily is whether the mind becomes sublimated and restful. Whatever growth and enrichment such an uncertain life of wandering would bring can also come to you wherever you are. So whatever growth and enrichment this wandering life can bring to you by subjecting yourself to various uncertainties, you must have when you are staying in a secure, apparently secure, certain life of certainty. Life is never certain. I'm talking about certainty means you get food, you get shelter, you don't have to think about it every day. But a wandering person will have to think about it every day. Where will I get food? Where will I take shelter? If the clothes are torn, where will I get them? He will not think about it. In fact, whether you stay in your ashram or wander from place to place, it is providence or chance alone that works ceaselessly. Baba is telling this to Swamiji. So in fact, whether you stay in the ashram, stay in your ashram, at that time Swamiji is talking about a time when he was wandering. He was not in the ashram where he is now. So Baba is telling him, whether you wander about or you really stay in an ashram, where every day you don't have to think whether you get a shelter or not, food or not. Whether you stay in your ashram or wander from place to place, it is providence or chance alone that works ceaselessly. Have reliance on providence. That will work. Whether you are in the ashram, staying in the ashram may not be peaceful. Staying in the ashram, there may be so many other difficulties. And wandering may not. So it is providence who gives you the peace and the contentment. One must have the humility and discernment to realize this fact. One must be humble to the providence. One must have humility. What is this? That ego should drop completely. That I am doing this, I have got this, I have achieved this. I am only deciding my fate. I am only deciding the future of my life. All that should drop. One should have humility that the providence wishes, so this is happening. Providence has designed, that is why it is happening, that is why everything has fallen in place, in whichever manner. It can be good, it can be bad. So, this kind of sublimation of the mind, purity of the mind, samatva in the mind, blissfulness in the mind, that should adorn a seeker. Then alone he becomes fulfilled wherever he is. This reminds me, when I came here, leaving the household, leaving the worldly profession, everything. You know, in the morning prayers, we chant the Vishnu Sahasranama, Bhagavad Gita. So one day when we were chanting the 12th chapter, the word Aniketaha came. Aniketa means one who doesn't have any place to stay. Krishna is telling Arjuna in many shlokas that a person who feels that he has no place to stay or doesn't have, he is very dear to me. Aniketa sthiramatihi bhaktimanyo same priyaha. So, that day suddenly, though I've been chanting this shloka, that day suddenly it struck me and I told Swamiji that, Swamiji, today while chanting this verse, I felt that, am I Aniketa? All the qualities of a bhakta which Krishna is saying, I'm trying to imbibe those. But Aniketa, I've left my home, but I'm in an ashram, under a shelter. I don't have to think of my food. I don't have to think of my shelter. I'm getting some clothes to wear. I'm getting everything that is necessary just to live. So how can I say that I'm relying on providence? I'm not taken to Aniketatva. It became a big question to me. How do I know that I am relying? So Swamiji said, yes, always you do not have to throw yourself to the situation and become that. You should be ready to become an Aniketa anytime that befalls you or you have faced the situation. In your mind, become Aniketa. So I understood it like that. That every moment we should never feel attached to anywhere we are staying, whatever we are eating, whatever we are getting. Aniketatva means being ready for anything, being ready for any situation. And that is what People may be staying in big houses, palatial houses. There may be an earthquake. Everything gets turned into rubbles. There may be a war. You have to flee the country. What is the certainty that you will remain where you are? So the mind should be absolutely wherever we are. That is what such a deep lesson that Baba has given. Wherever you are, you rely on providence, and the mind should become sublimated and restful. You don't have to wander to this place or that place and subject yourself to various situations. Know that providence or chance alone works ceaselessly. One must have the humility and discernment to realize the fact. This is what we must learn. I think I have finished, but I would like to take 2 slokas from Vivek Chudamani, which says how a mukta, when a person has like whatever Baba was telling Swamiji about a person who has, a seeker who has realized what he should do. Baba said that, be self-seated, praise none, pray to none, be full always. And this is how the person will live then. Kvachinmudho vidvan, kvachidapi maharaja vibhavah, kvachid bhrantas saumyah, क्वचिद अजगराचार कलितः, क्वचित् पात्रीभूतः, क्वचिद अवमतः, क्वाप्य विदितः, चरत्येवं प्राज्ञः सतत परमानंद सुखितः. क्वचिन्मूढो विद्वान्, क्वचिदपि महाराज विभवः. When I was reading those portions where we were talking about the renunciation, and Baba said that when we wonder what should be your attitude, be ready for a sword and a garland. You have to be one with everybody. There may be various situations. So, how one should look at life at that time? Nothing should affect him. Nothing. And it doesn't. If you are seated in the self, what happens is this. Kvachin mudho vidvan, kvachidapi maharaja vibhava. That is, wherever you go, you wander about, your mind should be pure and seated in the self. It should be divine. At that time, sometimes you behave or you look to be a fool, mudha. Sometimes you will interact with people talking about the self or God, and people will feel that you are a vidwan, you are a learned person. Kvachidapi maharaja vibhavaha. And sometimes there will be regal splendor in you. In a royal manner you will be walking about. Kvachit bhrantaha. Sometimes you will be wandering, behaving like a bhrantaha, deluded person. Nobody will understand that you are actually a realized person, a very learned person, that you have many followers. People will not understand because you will go in a very deluded manner. Saumyaha, very gentle and peaceful sometimes you will be. Kvachid ajagarachara kalitaha. And sometimes you will be like a python. What do the pythons do? They simply sit in somewhere. They don't even go looking for food. If some animals or something which they can eat come near their mouth, they open their mouth and eat it. So sometimes these realized people, they will simply sit somewhere. They will not seek food, not look for food. they'll be only seated and embraced in their own self. Kvachit patri bhutaha. Sometimes some people will honor him. They will bring offerings to him, they will give a garland to him, they'll give some dresses to him, they'll try to keep him very comfortable. Kvachid avamataha. And sometimes some people will not understand who he is. They will insult him, mock at him, joke at him, say bad words to him. Kvap aviditaha. And sometimes people will not know who really he is and ignore him. Charatyevam prajnaha. A prajna who has known the self, who sits in his own self, embraced by his own antaratma, carries that realization with him wherever he is. He moves about. People may think about him in various manners. Sometimes honoring, sometimes dishonoring, sometimes praising, sometimes criticizing, sometimes giving some food, sometimes not. Sometimes thinking he is a very foolish person, sometimes getting impressed by the scholarliness. He is not affected by anything whatsoever, whosoever what thinks about him, in whichever manner. He just moves about. Charatyevam prajnaha. In what manner? Satata paramananda sukhitaha. He is always, satata means ceaselessly, paramananda sukhitaha. He is always filled with paramananda. He is not affected by anything. He doesn't look for anything. He wants nothing. He is full. When something is full, what will he want? We keep on wanting because we don't have that fullness. We do not understand that we are full. So we are constantly wanting something. He feels he is full. There is no place to get anything else, even a small sand particle. He doesn't want anything. So he is Paramananda Sukhitaha. This is the 542nd verse in Vivek Chudamani. Then there is one more which says, 552. Naivendriyani vishayeshu niyungta esha naivapayungta upadarshana lakshanasthaha naiva kriya phalamapi shadavekshate sa swananda sandra rasapana sumatta chittaha. It says, such a person who has realized, who is a Jivan Mukta. After realization, one lives in this world like a Jivan Mukta, free. We all are living, but we are all constricted and under bondage. Bondage of our shackles of the mind and intelligence. A Jivan Mukta has cut asunder those knots. He is free. He moves about, like just now this shloka has said, freely. But he is Paramananda Sukhita. Paramananda Sukhita. Always Ananda, always Ananda. Long, long back in 1982, once we had gone to Amarnath. There, at this height, where it was snowing at that time, there was big snowstorm, full snow everywhere. Sannyasins, absolutely bare-bodied, with ash smeared on them. The horses were dying. People were going on these ponies. They had to walk, so they were in great difficulty. And with so much of snow around, so much cold, there were elderly people. Seeing the difficulties of people at that time, found that some of the sannyasins, they are standing and guiding them. They are naked with only ash smeared on them. And you know what one of them was saying? Anand karo, girna bhi anand hai. Because some of them were falling, some of the yatris were falling on the snow. and miserable. So they were saying, one of them was saying, Anand karo, with a very, delighted smile, full of compassion and mercy for the yatris who have come from the plains for punya, for the pilgrimage. They were telling, one of them was saying, Anand karo, girna bhi anand hai. That rejoice, rejoice. Even falling down is rejoicing. That is, Anand is everywhere. Self is everywhere, Satchidananda. And self is full everywhere. So what is there that is not Ananda? How can there be? Even take to your falling down as the expression of that self alone who is Ananda. And it was giving us a lot of strength and power, So much of power, so much of divinity, so much of feeling of, what to say, apurnata I was very young at that time. So, this shloka says, Naivendriyani vishayeshu niyungta esha, naivapayungta upadarshana lakshanastha. Such a Jivan Mukta person, he lives in this world. He does not direct his sense organs to their objects, not detaches them. That is, he lives in this world. There are so many objects which the sense organs get attracted to. He is not interested. He doesn't look for getting this thing, satisfaction through the sense organs. But suppose it comes to him, it's okay. Suppose he gets some good food, he takes it. Suppose he gets to see something good scenes, he will see it. He will talk to people. It's not that he withdraws from them. It's natural. Whatever comes, he allows. Whatever goes, he allows it to go. And stays like an unconcerned spectator. He stays like an unconcerned spectator. That is, he just remains unconcerned, indifferent. He has not the least regard for the fruits of actions. And whatever activity he has to do, he knows that whatever activity has to be done, it will be done. The outcome will be something. He is ready to accept whatever is the outcome, but activity he will go on doing. So he is like that. Because his mind is full of what? Swananda Sandra Rasapana Sumatta Chittaha. His mind is full of this Swa Ananda, his own delight, Satchidananda, the delight which comes forth from his own self, Swa Ananda, Sandra Rasapana. And from that Ananda, what is coming forth, what is flowing? Rasa. What kind of rasa? The juice. What kind of nectarine juice? Dense, Sandra. Dense nectarine juice is coming because of the self-effulgent Ananda that he has. And that Ananda is of one's own self. And he is constantly drinking that juice, nectarine juice, rasapana. He is intoxicated by, he is filled by, drenched by that dense nectarine, divine juice of Ananda which comes out of his self incessantly, ceaselessly, unbrokenly. Nobody understands it. Jivan Muktas, when we come to our Sadgurus, he is in that state, but he behaves in a most natural manner. We don't see his state from outside. To understand his state, we must also live there. how to understand him. We find him very normal, like a human being, ordinary human being. But he is always in this state. Satata Paramananda Sukhitaha Swananda Sandra Rasapana Sumatta Chittaha. Sumatta Chittaha. His mind is always in that blissfulness, exhilaration of constantly rejoicing in that ananda and drinking that nectarine bliss which is coming forth. Sadguru Sannidhya. My dear children, when we are in the association of our Sadguru, we must feel it. We must try to understand him. We must try to find that rasa in whatever he talks, in his behavior, in his admonition, in his comments, in his all kind of activities that he is doing. Just being near him, we must find that. We must get the touch of that Ananda Rasa. We should be yearning for that. The Sannidhya, the association will only be meaningful if we try to get at least few drops of that nectarine bliss that he enjoys. He enjoys. One must have pure yearning for that, and that yearning should grow and grow and grow in the mind of a seeker, a sincere seeker, a true seeker. And when he feels that that yearning is much more strong than any of the wishes and desires of this worldly life, he becomes then a true disciple, and true Sadguru Sannidhya he will enjoy, and he will imbibe from the Sadguru. Okay, I think this session of Sadguru Sannidhya for the time being is over, and in the next sessions I see what I can come ready with to share with you. Jai Guru, Jai Guru, Jai Guru. Sampurnam Jagadevanandanavanam Sarvepi Kalpadrumaha Gangam Vari Samasta Vari Nibaha Punya Samasta Kriyaha Vacha Prakrita Samskrita Shruti Shiro Varanasi Medini Sarvavasthitirasya Vastu Vishaya Drishti Parabrahmani Sarvavasthitirasya Vastu Vishaya Drishti Parabrahmani. Jai Guru, Jai Guru, Jai Guru.